Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, September 28th. And just notice my camera's not on. There you go. As always, we are meeting tonight on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. Squamish, Squamish, May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, Council?
No?
Can anyone hear me? Council? Can you hear me?
She's muted. Her microphone is muted.
This is muted.
No, we cannot hear you.
Unmute that then.
The phone. Oh.
Good start, everyone. Sorry. Okay. Okay, there we go.
All right, okay. I'm not in charge of my own microphone, so we're there now. Everyone can hear me. So I'll start again. Welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, September 8th. We are meeting as always on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? As moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We now need to pass Ministerial Order M192, our motion around that. Pursuant to Ministerial Order M192, the District of Squamish is allowing limited in-person public attendance at this meeting for September 8th, 2020. The district is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability at this meeting by the following means. This meeting is being live streamed. A video of this meeting will be available on the district's website for viewing on an on-demand basis. The meeting is open to the public for electronic participation, and there is limited public attendance available at Brennan Park Recreation Center. Motion to approve that. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I have a number of statements I have to read this evening. The first one is about Council's electronic participation. Council members are attending electronically this evening. When a council member disconnects or reconnects to the meeting, please let me know so that this can be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Council members are to identify themselves when they advise the chair they wish to be placed on the speakers list. If you are participating by video, you can raise your hand. If you are by audio only, just say chair. With respect to a vote, council members are only required to state a nay vote. No statement is required if the member is in favor. Council members, and since we are having a public hearing tonight, the public and staff shall keep their telephone or computer on mute unless it is their time to speak. Council members shall be and are expected to be involved in and participate in the meeting. Council members will text the corporate officer if they are having technical difficulties with their telephone or computer. And if the meeting is, or the technical difficulty is on our side, we will recess the meeting for up to 10 minutes to sort out those technical details and get everyone reconnected again. This is a new era of holding public hearings electronically. Our first one at the end of July did go smoothly. But that's not to say that every evening will go that smoothly. So for the public that is listening and those participating at Brennan Park, if we do run into a technical glitch, we ask that you just be patient and we'll get it sorted as quickly as possible. So now, in order to open the public hearing, I have quite a lengthy statement to read, so bear with me. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act requirements to allow the public to present and to provide submissions to Council respecting the proposed bylaw. District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw 2020-2011 Amendment Bylaw 39319 Falcon Crescent, number 2706-2019. Everyone present will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or provide a written submission. We want to ensure that no one is discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposed OCP, and zoning amendments. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaws. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted to the district website. Members of council may ask clarifying questions following presentations. Council is here to listen and will not debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with the public or each other during the public hearing. Up to and as part of this hearing, the public has had the opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they are available for review and comment and have been included as part of staff's report. Any submissions received after the agenda was published have been added to the electronic agenda and to the electronic public hearing package available on the district's website. Any submissions made during the hearing can be reviewed during the hearing by viewing the electronic agenda. Submissions will be uploaded by staff as they are received. I will now ask the planning department to outline what the bylaw is proposing.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. I would just like a thumbs up that you can hear me okay. Perfect, thank you. I will share my content now. All right, and can everyone see the presentation screen?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Okay. So Council of Squamish Community, my name is Sarah McJanet. I'm the finance planner supporting review of rezoning application 2019-58, which was received in September 2019 for the residential property at 319 Falcon Crescent. This is a proposed rezoning to amend Comprehensive Development Zone 38, or CD 38, to allow for permitted use and conversion of the residence to a full child care facility licensed as a group care center with up to 24 children aged 30 months to school age. This zoning amendment bylaw 2706 was introduced and received first two readings on June 30th. The presentation summarizes the project play proposal and amendment bylaw and presents some additional considerations for traffic management and the parking and signage program that was discussed at first reading, and it quickly highlights the public comments received to date. Firstly, this is confirmation that notification for this public hearing was completed pursuant to the Local Government Act statutory requirements for hearings. Public hearing advertisements for Bylaw 2706 were published in 2 consecutive editions of the Squamish Chief on August 27th and September 3rd, and the district delivered notices to owners and occupants within 100 meters of the subject property prior to the hearing, firstly on August 28th, then again on September 4th with an updated telephone access code for participation in the hearing. The bylaw package was made available at Municipal Hall and online, and staff updated the project showcase with the public hearing date. All previous public comments on this proposal received up to September 2nd were attached to the package, and additional letters received have been circulated to council and posted to the agenda. The subject property is Lot 4, situated in Ravenswood neighborhood north of downtown Squamish. This is in a 102 lot subdivision, and the last phase of the Loggers Lane small lot redevelopment approved in 2008. Lot 4 is just under 7,000 square feet, or 642 square meters. It's an interior lot on the outside of Falcon Crescent Bend. It has a 9-meter frontage and a lot depth of 118 meters at its steepest point. It houses a newly built 2-story detached residential dwelling with a 2-car garage. The rear of the residential lot is adjacent to Loggers Creek, forested riparian area, and is entirely fenced. The rear yard contains an outdoor play area and sunshade structure for the use of the existing childcare. Within the OCP, these subject lands are designated residential neighborhood. They encompass a wide range of housing types, neighborhood, commercial, institutional uses such as schools, places of worship, utilities, neighborhood parks, and open spaces. The proposed inclusion of a full childcare facility is aligned with and accommodated within this residential neighborhood designation. Therefore, no OCP amendment is required for the proposed rezoning. The CD38 zone allows exclusively for single residential housing on small lots with a minimum lot size of 366 square meters. In the district zoning bylaw, as a home occupation use, childcare facility residential is allowed within all zones in the district where single or multi-unit residential is permitted. The use already permits up to 16 children in this home-based setting based on an amendment that was enacted in 2014 to support increased childcare spaces within the community. The applicant and owner of Project Play currently provide home-based licensed childcare for 8 children aged 3 to 5 and have maintained long wait lists since opening in 2017. Project Play has held a long-standing interest in expanding the group care facility in line with their existing license type under the Community Care and Assisted Living Act. Initially, the applicants explored expanding to 16 children as allowable under the current zoning. However, more than 8 children triggers an occupancy change for the child care per the BC Building Code and requires major changes for fire separation between the two uses and occupancies. Given significant investments in interior and exterior spaces and the capital investment required to gain code compliance for dual occupancy, Project Play has applied to convert the dwelling to a full child care facility, a non-residential facility, and to cease the residential and joint home-based child care use. No other space is currently available that suits their needs, and the applicants have shared a strong desire to stay within and serve local families in a neighborhood setting. With the space available within the dwelling, the proposed expansion of the child care facility includes the upper floor of the building as well, and the base and allows for 2 full classroom spaces, 16 children on the first story and 8 children upstairs, accommodating up to 24 children total. This represents an additional 8 children over the current maximum permitted capacity for a residential facility, and 16 more spaces than currently offered at the facility. All required indoor and outdoor space is provided in the existing dwelling. There is no increase in allowable gross floor area being proposed. With building reclassification to the A2 assembly occupancy, typical upgrades include installation of sprinkler and fire alarm systems. These have already been installed at Project Play, lighting and exit signage, accessible washrooms, new swing door, exit doors, adding a firewall, and enhancing fire separations and ratings of exit, floor, and roof assemblies. The proposed amendment bylaw adds childcare use as an additional principal use for Lot 4 only. While the district zoning bylaw does not prescribe a maximum number of spaces for children that can be accommodated within a childcare facility, occupancy for non-residential facilities has been left to provincial childcare licensing regulations. However, within the zoning, in this case, the use is subject to a number of conditions, including a maximum occupancy of 24 children. As mentioned, there's no increase in gross floor area being proposed. The maximum in the zone is 0.5 FAR and a max lot coverage of 50%. And the current dwelling is within that maximum. For district parking standards, we refer to precedent parking for childcare facilities of 1 space for 6 children and 1 space per employee. This is the parking precedent that was recently applied at the Fresh Air Daycare spot zone. So with a maximum of 24 children and 3 staff, being 1 educator and up to 2 assistants, a total of 7 parking spaces will be required for Project Play. On site, the 2-car garage and 2-car apron allows for 2 designated cars for drop-off and pickup, in addition to employee parking within the garage. The remaining 5 spaces are proposed off-site on the underutilized public roadway along Blue Jay Way. Additional housekeeping changes to the CD38 zone are also proposed, and those have been detailed in the report. Specific prescribed conditions for the use of the child care facility are listed on the screen and are as follows. Containment of the child care use within the building, with the exception of outdoor play area. Provision of required indoor and outdoor play area per provincial licensing requirements. The maximum occupancy of 24 children. A minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces. Provision of secure bike parking and stroller storage within the garage or rear fence area screened from view. A maximum of 1 exterior child care business sign. Increase and an allowance for increased fence height from 2.44 meters from 1.22 meters on the internal side yard for additional screening as needed. Vancouver Coastal Health has previewed the project phase expansion plan and confirmed the additional area required for indoor and outdoor space for the 24 children is within, it confirmed that the additional area required is adequate for 24 children within the existing building and the rear yard. All public feedback received up to September 2nd is included in attachment 4, as I mentioned earlier. Additional comments since September 3rd have been circulated and posted to the agenda. There's a spectrum of input that has been received, including immediate neighborhood feedback, as well as feedback from the community as a whole, and it represents both individual and community interests. In addition to the additional comments that were put to the agenda, by my count, there are 21 individuals that have cited concerns about the proposed child care expansion, and we have an additional 20 individuals providing support for the application and note the need for increased child care access within the community. Areas of highest concern raised by neighbors to date focus on traffic, safety, and parking. They note limited on-site parking, congested street parking, and blocked driveways. The interior lot is situated on the Falcon Crescent bend, which naturally reduces roadway visibility and can compress the distance between driveways on the northern side of the road. In addition to concerns respecting traffic generation, parking and noise impacts, the district has received comment on loss of privacy, declining property values, and compensation, as well as concerns for neighborhood character. A number of comments question the suitability of commercial use in a residential subdivision. Increased childcare capacity of up to 16 additional spaces over the current 8 spaces will generate traffic with daily pickup and drop-off at the morning and afternoon peak periods between 8 and 9:30 a.m. and in the afternoon between 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. Traffic generation is and would be expected to be split between active, meaning walking or biking modes, and vehicular modes. As of May 2020, 5 of the 8 children registered in care at Project Play live within the immediate neighborhood, and this is also increased for this upcoming September. This means that currently more than 50% of children are within walking distance of the child care and arrive by foot or bike. The remaining 50% arrive by vehicle from outside of the neighborhood. With 24 proposed children, applying a conservative mode split of 25 to 50% would mean that between 12 and 18 children could be anticipated to arrive by vehicle. This is in the absence of any other measures to reduce travel demand, and shift travel modes. For this reason, the planning review and focus has been to work with the applicant to identify measures to ease traffic congestion and manage parking in the vicinity of the facility. In the public hearing report, we presented additional information respecting Project Play's proposed neighborhood traffic management and parking protocol, as well as demand-side measures to promote active travel, improve safety, and reduce congestion impacts with daycare use. Proposed demand-side measures and tactics include giving priority placement to families within 500 meters of the daycare to reduce traffic demand, providing a secure on-site bike and stroller parking to encourage active transportation, travel, and scheduling staggered drop-off and pickup times for families to reduce congestion at peak times. To secure the operator's commitment to ongoing traffic and parking management and to avoid and mitigate traffic impacts, a Section 219 covenant in favor of the municipality is proposed for registration on title requiring the licensed facility on Lot 4 to have and maintain a traffic management and parking plan. Project Play's traffic management and parking plan and code of conduct is detailed in the public hearing package as attachment 2, and the draft covenant is presented as attachment 3. The covenant requires the child care facility will maintain a traffic management and parking plan and secure a declaration with families informing clients of the traffic management and parking plan and of their responsibility to follow and share the plan with those assigned to drop off or pick up children at the facility. 2 key figures are presented. Figure A prescribes child care access routes to and from the facility for pickup and drop off, and to avoid drivers' temptation for U-turns within the subdivision. And I'll show this figure momentarily, as well as figure B, which shows on and off-site parking areas for pickup and drop off, as well as proposed street and parking signage directing no parking signage here, or no parking areas. Pictured here is figure A, the access and circulation plan is being proposed to reduce congestion and support safe, efficient travel to, from, and within Ravenswood neighborhood. Patrons or clients of the child care facility in vehicles would be directed to access the child care facility from the south along Raven Drive via Cardinal and travel northbound on the western segment of Falcon Crescent. Patrons traveling from the north of the child care facility would be directed to follow the same access and circulation. The applicant and staff examined existing local street conditions along with access and intersections in the vicinity of the child care. As you can see in figure B, the internal local road network consists of 2 loop roads, Falcon Crescent and Mockingbird Crescent, with narrow 18-meter right-of-ways, inclusive of sidewalks on mostly both sides of the street and rollover curbs. No parking signage is posted to light standards along one side of these local roads. In the proposed parking plan, families are directed to use the following parking areas for the child care facility, temporary drop-off and pickup. The 2 on-site stalls at the child care facility are reserved for children and patrons with limited mobility or additional needs. And there are 5 off-street parking spots to accommodate temporary parking for drop-off and pickup on the north side of Blue Jay Way. This parking is not proposed to be exclusively reserved for this business use. It is shared street parking. Additional parking is also available at Brennan Park Recreation Center within a 4-minute walk from the site along the corridor trail. This is consistent with the Drive to 5 concept that is being promoted in the district's Safe Routes to School program. Staff, engineering, and fire services have reviewed the proposed parking strategy and note no concerns with this parking proposal, subject to additional no parking signage and effective communication of parking protocol to ensure no blocked driveways. These images highlight the proposed parking for the expanded child care center. You can see on the top, there are the 2 parking spaces on site available at Project Play, side-by-side spaces with a full parking apron, and the bottom image shows the local road context and typical available capacity on the north side of Blue Jay Way during the weekday peak periods for drop-off and pickup. This section of local road allows between 5 to 7 additional spaces. There is 55 linear meters along this segment on the north side of Blue Jay Way. To address parking in the immediate vicinity of Falcon Crescent Bend, the applicant has committed to funding and installing 2 parking stalls on Blue Jay Way, as well as an additional no parking sign in the Falcon Crescent Bend interior. With a total of 3 signs, this would be at a cost of $500 each for a total contribution of $1,500. Staff notes that no further community amenity contribution was discussed beyond the applicant's voluntary contribution towards additional no parking signage installation. as the proposed childcare facility use is itself considered a community amenity of high need, and while this enables an additional permitted use on the parcel, it does not allow for any additional built density. In addition, several new signs are recommended for installation by the District of Squamish to improve safety and the use of the local roadways and intersections in this neighborhood. These include one no U-turn sign on Blue Jay Way on the south side, as depicted in Figure B, as well as 2 playground zone signs on Falcon Crescent in the Pocket Park, and 1 additional no parking sign on Falcon Crescent on the interior end. So the cost for this new signage to the district would be $2,000 and would be recommended for the 2021 capital budget and put forward in the financial plan. In the first reading report, staff noted registration of the Lot 4 childcare covenant in favor of the municipality, along with securing the street frontage contribution to be proposed to be required prior to consideration of adoption. As the covenant runs with the land, it would also secure the obligation of any future childcare owner, operator on Lot 4 to maintain a traffic management and operational plan. The draft covenant is attached to the public hearing report, highlighting key terms and conditions that would be finalized subject to third reading and the public hearing should council pursue that direction. The covenant does propose to restrict the childcare use to 24 spaces, and this is to backstop the total occupancy. And again, it obliges the facility to maintain the traffic management and parking plan. Finally, as noted in the first reading report, this local childcare need is substantial. Childcare demand and space projects were assessed and updated this year. Space projections, sorry. There is an anticipated need of 72 new spaces each year for the next 10 years to achieve our identified target of 30 spaces or 30% for kids aged 0 to 12. The recent Child Care Action Plan recommends integrating childcare in both existing and new neighborhoods so Squamish families are able to access a diversity of childcare options in proximity to home, work, school, or other places or services they regularly travel to. The Squamish Child Care Needs Assessment and Strategy recommends prioritizing new facilities in neighborhoods with high child populations, as well as around existing and future planned service hubs, schools, senior centers, parks, and Brennan Park Recreation Center to create and strengthen childcare hubs across the community. Respecting the location and integration of commercial childcare facilities in residential neighborhoods, there was substantial discussion in the attachment in the June 30th staff report. Staff wanted to highlight there are several precedents and examples of existing facilities, spot zones, and also located in local residential areas. Fresh Area Daycare in Brackendale, Platypus in Amblepath, as well as the Montessori in Valley Cliff are all examples. Pictured here is the location of Platypus within Amblepath subdivision. It's on a strata lot, a similar area of 658 square meters with 50% lot coverage and 1.5 meter side lot setbacks. The childcare is located at the entrance to the subdivision, but it does have 4 spaces on site for parking and has combined common property parking adjacent to the facility. This childcare use was prescribed from the outset, but it does exist as an example of childcare in close proximity to residential homes. These are some images of the childcare, Platypus childcare in Amblepath, street view showing proximity of parking and adjacent residential uses. With that, that is the end of the presentation for staff, and I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. McJanet. Just for clarity in my opening comments, I think I read that there are proposed OCP and zoning amendments before us tonight, and I just read an extra line in there that I shouldn't have. We are only looking at a zoning amendment tonight, so I'm sorry if I created any confusion. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. McJanet. I'll now ask the applicant or their representative to comment on the proposed rezoning. after which anyone else will be given the opportunity to speak to the proposed bylaw. Details to participate via telephone or WebEx are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. Instructions are also included on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, if you are on the telephone, in order to raise your hand, so to speak, you dial *3, or via WebEx on computer or cell phone app by opening the participant panel and by clicking on the hand icon. Please note that there will be a moderator who will communicate with speakers. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt via telephone or a dialog box via WebEx, whether you're on computer or your cell phone app. I do ask that once you have spoken, that you remember to put your hand down after you have finished speaking. So if you're on the telephone, you would just dial *3 again to put your hand down. And again, if you're on WebEx, either the app or on your computer, you would just hit the hand icon again to pull it down. Limited in-person participation is available, and it is for those unable to participate by electronic means at Brennan Park Recreation Center, Squamish Chief Activity Room. Please note that council members are not in physical attendance, and in-person attendance is limited to 30 people in order to comply with the order of the Provincial Health Officer for gatherings and events. Staff is available to add names of interested parties to the speakers list and to provide direction when it is your turn to speak. We ask any speakers at Brennan Park, if there are any tonight, that they do not touch the podium. We ask for your patience as we work through the speakers list in this new online and in-person format. If there are a large number of participants, it may take some time to get through the list. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood, and just state your name and your address or neighborhood. Please note that the speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to address council in order that everyone has an opportunity to speak. If you've already spoken and wish to speak again to provide more or new comments, please again raise your hand or add your name to the speakers list if you are in person at Brennan Park. Once I have indicated that speakers will be offered additional speaking opportunities. So if your comments go longer than 5 minutes, I'll ask you to close off your remarks, and then we'll wait till everyone else has had an opportunity to speak, and then I'll return to those who would like to add a second set of comments. If there are still speakers who wish to address council at 10 p.m., council will consider recessing the hearing to resume. The instructions for electronic participation will not change. So I will look to our moderator now.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. We're going to go to Brennan Park. The applicant is there and wishes to address council. Applicant, you can go ahead.
She's muted. She's muted. I just unmuted. Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, I would like to start by thanking you all for considering our proposal to address the child care community needs. Project Play's mission is to support children to learn via play-based opportunities, to grow in a loving and a healthy environment that supports their language, cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. The decision to expand Project Play came about to the fact that I experience firsthand on a daily basis the struggle families go through to find quality early learning programs in our town, and the tough choices they need to make due to the lack of childcare spaces in our community. The result will allow the creation of more quality care systems. I hope this proposal and its process will help creating a path for the future of
Next, we are going to go to a call-in user. When you hear the message, you are unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. Caller, you can go ahead. Hello there. Okay, we'll put caller user number 7 on hold. We'll go to the next person, which is a WebEx caller. We're going to take Jared Seisens. Jared, you're our next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
Mockingbird. 39279 Mockingbird Crescent.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Project Play and how some of our neighbors are actually concerned about the overall project. I did at my house have a meeting with over 21 concerned neighbors talking about the issues that the daycare would present. I do know that a lot of correspondence actually happened with council in terms of the submissions that were put in. The majority of the submissions that were put in, I don't know if council actually mapped it out, but the majority of the names on the project are pretty close to Project Play in the adjacent park area, the neighbors across the street and so on. So there's within a close proximity of the facility, there is a lot of concerns. This is being presented as a scenario that everything's going to be wonderful and put in place, and nothing will go wrong. So we're just wondering, one of the questions that we have is, what are the recourses that we would have as residents living, close if some of these parking regulations weren't followed, or children, running in the streets and, potentially they could get hit or things like that. Like, where would we have recourse in a new rezoning application in a residential neighborhood of problems that might occur? That's one of the things that we have talked about. The other one was a big issue, is the no U-turn on Blue Jay. That would mean that all the cars that were dropping off or parking there would have to go through the whole neighborhood. That's a huge concern, being that we've already had a dog killed in the neighborhood, getting run over and things like that. Some of the residents in the neighborhood are concerned about their pets, they're concerned about their children, with the increased traffic, coming through the neighborhood. You mentioned the design pedicus plate. That was actually put in place prior to the development. It was part of the zoning, and it was built in the direction to ensure that all those things were considered before putting a daycare center into a general area. So this will be added afterwards, and I don't think it has the same layout and the same thought process put in place to handle the additional traffic and the additional parking that would be going through the neighborhood. The last thing that I would mention is that on Cardinal Drive, the development of the neighborhood hasn't even happened yet. There's probably going to be another 25, 30 homes there, which will increase the overall traffic in, Ravenswood. With the additional daycare, this, quiet residential neighborhood will certainly change. And, that is a huge concern to, a lot of us in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to bring those concerns to council's attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sissons.
We're going to go to Brennan Park again. Brian McGowan, you're up next. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and Brian McGowan, as you rightly said, I'm very impressed with that. Yes, Falcon Crescent, 39337, live 3 doors away on Project Play. So, look, we continue to understand there's a need for childcare in the community, and we have no concerns about the the way that this child care facility is being run. Glauco and Rosa do a fantastic job. Everybody says that comes in contact with them. Our main opposition to this amendment is safety, and particularly the vehicle pickups and Himika. I need to come closer. Wow. Okay. So vehicle pickup and drop-offs are the major concerns. The location has been outlined already of the childcare is on a sharp end, and currently only with 8 children attending, there has been plenty of near misses that have happened already, where children could get knocked over. And increasing to 24 will obviously compound this to a degree where it's not when, but, so it's not if, but it's when the child will get knocked over. Also, as already mentioned, there is more residential buildings coming online in the neighbourhood, another 31 properties, which currently don't access Falcon Crescent because it's blocked off for the development. But very shortly that will be opened and more traffic will be coming down. We should also not assume, as in the figures, that because there are a number of people that don't drive their children to the daycare, that will always stay the same. What happens in 5 or 10 years' time could completely change the makeup of how children get to daycare. And I find it quite shocking that actually the proposal is that parents will drive all the way down Lovers Lane and access a different route from the south to come in. How is that ever going to be managed and enforced? And I'd like to know, what are the enforcement consequences if public place doesn't meet the requirements of managing the traffic plan? I can't see how they can physically enforce it. We can't currently enforce people walking up and down a supermarket aisle at the moment the right way. So how do you enforce people driving around the neighbourhood? Especially in Squamish, when it's raining and parents are late, they will take the shortest route to drop off their child that may not want to go to childcare on that day. So there's some real concerns here about the volume of traffic coming in and being able to manage it effectively and safely for everybody there. I'd also take note on Sarah's comment earlier about there's no local opportunities to put a bigger childcare facility. I do understand there's already a planning permission for developments round by the old RV park and the golf area to put some commercial buildings in there, and one of those items, I believe, is already earmarked for childcare facilities. So there's an opportunity to put a bigger childcare facility there that nobody's spoken about so far. I'll just check my notes. Is there anything else I need to say? No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan.
We're going to go to another WebEx caller. Hello. McGee Walker, you're next. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. My name is McGee Walker, and I live at 1709 Sparrow Way. So as a parent of an almost 2-year-old, I've had the opportunity to witness firsthand the impacts of a lack of child care in the members of our community. I've seen the stress this puts on families in Squamish, and I have seen far too many women in particular unable to return to work despite doing everything quote-unquote right. We get on wait lists before we get first or second trimester work. We follow up with daycares month after month, and so on. I know that our council is well aware of the child care crisis in our community, and I'm really pleased to see that you have publicly recognized this issue and have committed to improving the situation for the many young families in our community, not just Ravenswood, but Squamish as a whole. So today we're discussing the opportunity to create up to 16 more spaces for kids in our town. It's not enough to fix the crisis, to be sure, but it is a starting point in working towards our goals of increasing the supply of childcare spaces, including childcare facilities in individual neighborhood nodes like here in Ravenswood. Not everything about the proposal is perfect, as many of my neighbors and some council members in the past have expressed concerns about, especially the traffic, which I think have been addressed in many ways in this proposal. I think it's easy to say, sure, I support more childcare spaces in Squamish, just not here in Ravenswood. But I actually think Ravenswood is the perfect place for a childcare facility. Not only is this property already operating as a well-regarded childcare facility, but this neighborhood has a ton of young kids, or as per the district's childcare plan, we have a high child population. The proposal does also indicate that children in this immediate neighborhood, so who live within 500 meters of the facility, will have priority placement, which means that hopefully we'll have as many kids as possible walking and biking to their child care facility, and I think that's a win in so many ways. So in closing, I just want to thank you for requiring the applicant to think creatively in the proposal and solving some of the issues that have come up, while ultimately considering the big picture and the role this proposal plays in helping resolve Squamish's childcare crisis. I hope that my neighbors will join me in supporting this application and in recognizing the many privileges that we have as residents of Ravenswood, as well as our responsibility to support our community's needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
We're going to try to reach a call-in user that we couldn't contact a little bit earlier to see if they're still there. So go ahead if you are now receiving the message that you are muted.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. My name is Mark Donnelly, and I live on Falcon Crescent and the junction with Mockingbird. I'm against this proposal for a number of reasons. The first is very simply that Ravenswood was zoned as a residential development not more than 4 or 5 years ago. The council at that time should have had the foresight to then mandate a childcare facility within the development, as it did at the other one, Ampleforth. Secondly, there is another proposal, as was mentioned earlier, which is covered under Bylaw 2529, which impacts 1701 and 1940 Centennial Way, which used to be a sort of campsite. That proposed rezoning is only 500 meters from Ravenswood. And that proposed rezoning is to do a comprehensive development zone, including the facility for daycare. That is the solution to daycare, is to put the daycare facility in that bylaw proposal and not in Ravenswood. Thirdly, traffic has already been mentioned quite a bit. I live on the T-junction of Mockingbird and Falcon Crescent, and people from the daycare just regularly pull U-turns in front of my house because they can't really be bothered to take the long way round. Also, they double park in front of the daycare facility at the moment. They have blocked people's driveways who are contiguous to the daycare, and they even double park, blocking my way to exit when I wanted to go out onto Lovers Lane. So whatever signs you put up, and whatever rules you say are in place, it is about how they're enforced, and in this case it can only be through self-enforcement, and at the moment that looks very poor, because as I say, people are pulling illegal U-turns in front of my house from that daycare on a daily basis. And finally, an issue which hasn't been raised is that the property, like all the properties on Falcon Crescent, back onto riparian land, which is frequented by black bears during the summer. And I'm just wondering about the adequacy of it, a very simple chain link fence which was put in by the developer, Benchmark Homes. And if you have up to 24 children in that backyard when there are bears present, I would like to think what the consequences of that could be. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donnelly.
Our next speaker is Mac McDell. Mac, please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Mac McDell. I live at 39256 Falcon Crescent. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. My concern is mainly in how the map regarding the traffic flow was created. Who created it? Who had the knowledge and experience and understanding of how to create that proper map. I'd like that information back or to be presented, please. Like, was it a traffic individual that did that, or was it just a hand-drawn thing that somebody came up with sitting at a table?
Staff will be noting questions throughout this, Mr. McDowell, and
So we
answer
did-
that later. So if you've got other comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, so my concern is that that drawing doesn't adequately address how traffic will flow for easily over 50, 60 cars through a neighborhood every day. I'd like to know who is the author of that traffic flow pattern and what their skills and qualifications are to give them that.
Okay. Do you have any other comments?
That's it, thanks.
Okay, appreciate it.
Terry Abbey, you will be next. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead. Yeah,
Go ahead,
Go
Terry.
ahead, Terry.
Okay, you can hear me. Hi, my name is Terry. I live at 38878 Newport Road. I am actually a parent of 2 children that go to Project Play, and I have no concerns with the proposed rezoning. I think Squamish has a very aggressive plan for high-density housing, so your proposed need for childcare is very much underrepresented. I think there is a higher need than what is being spoken about, and I think that the 16 spaces you are creating with Project Play doesn't even, it really doesn't help as much as what we need in this community. I'm a small business owner and a working mother of 3 children, as is my husband, and deterring women like Rosa that are so passionate about educating children and wanting to better the life of children is the last thing that Squamish needs right now. Having a childcare facility does not bring crime into your neighborhood, number one. There are no suitable spaces for our children. How are we supposed to work and thrive in our community with extreme lack of and shortage of childcare? Of 3 of my children, we have been on wait lists since, like Nikki had mentioned. I had wait lists from the moment I was pregnant for years to get into a space with 3 children. Like, it's absolutely absurd living in this community, the lack of childcare that we do have. Home-based businesses are rampant throughout Squamish. It does not matter what neighborhood you live in, there will always be traffic going into and out of neighborhoods. Now, of these 24 spaces that are proposed for Project Play, like it was already mentioned, more than half of them walk or bike to the class. And I am one of the parents that does drive, and I have 2 of my children going to that place. So if you factor in some of the parents that actually have 2 children going to that, you're going to have a max of like maybe 15 cars for less than 10 minutes at 9 o'clock and 4 o'clock during the day. I think that it's important to note that the parking issues that have come up, there has never been a parent that has blocked someone's driveway, and there's actually records and photos of that I know Rosa is able to support. So I want our voices as the parents of Project Play to be heard, and that there is, I think as council, we need to really listen to a woman like Rosa that is willing to expand an incredible educational learning center, and we should not be deterring her from doing that. It is one of the biggest needs we have in Squamish. If we want small businesses to thrive here, we have to offer childcare so women can get back into the workforce. So that is all I have to say. I am all for this progress plan. I think you guys have done an incredible job laying it out, and I'm happy to speak up on any other matter.
Thanks so much, Ms. Abbey.
We're going to take a phone call now. When you hear the message, you are unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have up to 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead.
Hi, Reggie Morris at 3935 Falcon Crescent. Yeah, I live about 4 or 5 roads north down from Rosa. I do have a question, but I want to state that I've always, and I think most people, as far as Rosa and Locos project, I don't think anyone's opposed to what terrific work they do. I don't think anyone's opposed that, you know, daycare is needed within Squamish and the area of Squamish. That's not the issue. Those who live closest are oftentimes, they're the ones who are most concerned. So I appreciate the last caller who called and mentioned that, you know, daycare is needed. You know, it seems like the farther you are from the daycare, that argument is a lot easier to say when your family is not affected. Now I can say firsthand, before any of it came out, I bought 5 of those fluorescent signs. This is years ago when I first moved in, because people come in here and they drive like crazy. For whatever reason, people are late. Like, I'm guilty of it myself, even though I try and keep the speed down. But I bought those signs because I was concerned about, this is out of pocket, about the traffic coming in and out. And again, this is a few years ago before any of this controversy happened. I even gave one to Glasgow and Rosa because I too was concerned about their kids. Now, when the original proposal came out in 2016, I know I can speak for myself, but I can speak for a lot of people within the community. No one was really opposed to 16, or it didn't seem that way. It's going from 16 to 24, how you can see that traffic does increase, and it really is a concern on traffic, and my kids as well. So for sure, it's a convenience factor, or a need, I should say, within the community. I'm concerned for my kids, and I have a right to be as well. And I think that a lot of people around here have the same concern. And sure, like there's a need for daycare, but there's also a need to protect my kids. And as I did find those signs years ago, you know, the talk of there being some parents or some communities where a lot of people within a 500-meter radius can bring their kids. Well, that demographic can change year by year. And within a few years, who knows, there may not be as many kids. And the need to get more kids from the outside may rise. We can't use those. We just don't know. Those are the numbers we know right now, and not years from now. So that demographic can fall or rise. And the last thing I got to say is, well, I guess a couple more things. You know, if you're a parent who is late, and I'm guilty of this myself, it doesn't matter what rules are in place or the best laid plans or intentions. You're going to dip around that corner, and especially if no U-turns allowed. All those rules are you know, they're meant for a reason. But when you're late, all bets are off, and parents don't tend to respect that. Or it can be anyway. There's potential for that, and all it takes is one time. So that's that. Why can't we just keep it at 16? Like, why do we have to go to 24? And why can't we make an exception and have a daycare at 16, which I was all in favor for, even though my kids now, we too struggle looking for daycare. They're at an age now, they're at an elementary school. But at the time, you know, we needed daycare. We were struggling, we found it. Why not keep it at 16? Why do we have to go to 24? Hey, that's my suggestion. I think that would resolve a lot of problems and a lot of debate might be ended through that. So that's it.
Thank you, Reggie.
Before we go to the next speaker, can we ask that if you've already spoken, could you please lower your hand? Helps us keep control over our speakers list. We're going to go to a WebEx caller, Ines LeBlanc. You are our next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead, please.
Hello, you're hearing me okay?
Yes, we are. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Ines LeBlanc. I live at 38044 on 5th Avenue, downtown. I am a parent of my daughter who has gone to Project Slate since she was 2.5. She just graduated. And I'm hugely in favor of this project. For obvious reasons, we need more childcare. I was one of the lucky parents who just got a spot with Rosa right away. I feel that, yes, of course, there are many concerns with traffic and safety. I feel that these are issues in literally every single neighborhood in Squamish. without the benefit of having an excellent high-quality daycare, and at some point, that's an issue. It's an issue anyway. So I feel that that's not enough of a deterrent to eliminate an incredible, like being a solution to huge daycare needs. And I also want to stress that Rosa's program is incredible, and she has so much integrity and is an incredible communicator with the parents, and so that if there are issues, in my time being there, if there were issues, she communicated those parents, and she has so much passion and really, really wants to do right by the community and those around her. I also know that the people on either side of her, one in particular didn't even know that there was a preschool there, and he works from home. I feel that the wage issue that some people have brought up is, I find it really hard to believe that the sound of children laughing and playing is, you know, an annoyance. And the bear issue, there were a few times where there were bears on the other side of the chain link fence, and the children came in immediately, and I've never ever been worried about that issue with having my child there. The other thing that's been brought up is the idea of property value decreasing. That again, I feel that it's the opposite. I think that most people would be extremely happy to have daycare close to their homes. I just can't support this enough. If there's anyone that should be having a daycare in increasing the number of spaces in their center, it would be Rosa. You know, we need quantity, we need more spaces, but we also quality, is also extremely important. And I can't think of anyone who's better equipped to guide our children and set them up for their future. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Okay, so we've been through our first round of speakers. There are a couple of folks who wish to speak again, so I will go over to our moderator.
Okay, we have Rosa at Brennan Park who would like to address council a second time. Rosa, if you could go to the podium, we're ready for you.
Hold on, Rosa.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you now.
I was asked to speak again because the first time apparently was too low. I would like to start by thanking you all for considering our proposal to address the child care community needs. Project Play mission is to support children to learn via play-based opportunities, to grow in a loving and healthy environment that supports their language, cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. The decision to expand Project Play came about to the fact that I experienced firsthand on a daily basis the struggle families go through to find quality early learning programs in our town, and the tough choices they need to make due to the lack of child care spaces in our community. The rezoning will allow the creation of more quality care spaces. I hope this proposal and its process will help creating a path for the District of Squamish and other small child care facilities to increase child care offered spaces. This rezoning request is in alignment with the Squamish Child Care Needs Assessment and Strategy 2018 to 2023, which Project Play was happy to be part of the conversation. What we have here is a great opportunity to work together and find solutions to a challenge that a fast-growing community faces. We need to be mindful about the community we want to create, about inclusion, about multi-zoning for now and the future. I would also like to thank the District of Squamish, the Planning and the Building Department that have been incredibly helpful in explaining the requirements and the process to us in order to increase capacity. We believe that working together is key to help educators and providers like me to make that happen for small business owners. It is an opportunity to support small local business in this effort. And in return, more early learning spaces would be created faster and safely. Thanks to the Ravenswood neighborhood for voicing their support and also the concerns so we could address them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there's one more caller, so I'm going to go to this person, and then I'm going to ask Ms. McJanet to answer some of the questions that came up during folks' comments, and then I will go to council to see if council has any questions. So we'll go ahead with this next person.
So we're going to stay at Brennan Park, and Mr. McGowan, if you could come back to the podium, please. We're ready to hear you for a second time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm not getting the...
Can they hear us at Brennan Park?
Okay, I'm being told by the technical guy here that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
And for the first time in my life, I've been told I've got to talk louder. So I hope that I don't come across as shouting. I don't mean to do that. But I believe the first time people couldn't hear me, and I just want to have the opportunity to go over my items again. So, as stated, completely understand the need for childcare in Squamish, and we have no concerns about Rosa and her facility and how she's handling that for 8 children at the moment. We oppose this. I'm sorry, just go back. I live at 39337 Falcon Crescent, which is 3 doors up Project Lane. We oppose this mainly on safety grounds, and it's about the vehicle pickup and drop-off. There have been issues already. People's driveways have been blocked, as a previous speaker said there hasn't. It has been. My wife has an office at home, and she sees it on a regular basis, those U-turns happening and near misses. This will only get worse if the capacity is increased to 24. And this capacity for 24 then stays there for many years. So the numbers being worked on about how many people will cycle or walk their children versus driving may well also change. And when it's raining, and especially in Squamish, it rains quite a lot, people will drive. And to have a traffic plan that says parents should drive all the way past the first entrance down to Lover's Lane and then come back up will never be able to be enforced. You would have to put somebody there 5 days a week, mornings and afternoons, just to manage it. And who's going to allow that to happen? And then what are the consequences when the project plan, the management plan, the transport plan is not being adhered to? What are the consequences to the owners? They can sign up to any plan, but what are the consequences when things go wrong? And the worst case scenario, which will happen at some stage, it's not an if, a child, be it a neighbourhood child or a child in the project plan, will get injured by a car. So what is that worth to everybody that's talking tonight? Just what if it was your child that got injured, how would you feel about allowing this to proceed? Others also spoke about no issues on vandalism or crime in a project plan. And I would have to admit that in the daytime, it's probably an advantage to have a childcare facility in your neighbourhood when you're at work, if you don't work at home. However, at night time, if this project goes ahead, that premises will be unattended. We already have been targeted a number of times over the last few years of potential break-ins into vehicles and properties in the neighbourhood. What's going to happen at this unattended childcare facility when people get wind that there's nobody there? Another comment that was made by Sarah was that there is no local facility available currently for this proposed size. That again is not correct. Already in planning at Centennial Way, there is a number of properties there, townhomes, condominiums and commercial space, and part of the commercial space is already earmarked for childcare facility. So there is the opportunity there. And I think, and then the other two things, Sarah also mentioned two of the residential childcares, Applepack was one. My understanding is both of those were designed in. This property is on a blind bend. It's not designed in to be a childcare facility to pick up and take away children. Everybody knows the issues around schools about picking up and taking away children. In this area, it's completely unsafe. And we're voicing our concerns about the logic of living on this street and seeing the danger. We're telling you there's a risk. It's a high risk. And I don't want to see further down the line some injury that happens. So, and that's why we oppose this expansion to 24 places. The 8 is fine at the moment, the 16 is fine. The only reason we're not going to 16 is financially it becomes not so much of a business case for the owners. So it's a commercial decision for them. And so I've got a question mark there to say, have they factored in? One of the children you look after gets injured. How would you feel? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGann. So I'm going to go to Ms. McJanet now to address some of the questions that came up, and then I will go to council to see if they have any questions of clarification. And then I believe we still have another person who wishes to speak again. Go ahead, Ms. McJanet.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. I have 3 answers, or I have response and clarifying answers for 3 different questions. The first being the management and enforcement of the traffic management plan, the parking program, as has been proposed. And to this, just to highlight that through the covenant and through the conditions of the zoning, the responsibility of the childcare operator on lot 4, as proposed and covenanted, will be to maintain a traffic management and parking plan, and that traffic management and parking plan be included within the service agreement and materials that is supplied to parents and clients of Project Play, and that there is agreement to abide by that plan. And over time, where there are things that arise, there is also within the covenant an opportunity to, and because the covenant is in favor of the municipality, there is an opportunity to consider issues that arise and to address them proactively or as a result of neighborhood concerns that may arise or complaints. This is typical of our business licensing, where we issue annual business license. We also work with businesses should there be any issues that are impacting adjacent occupants or so on and so forth. In terms of enforcement, traffic, the district enforces our traffic bylaw that includes the parking component, and we also enforce parking. And we enforce parking based on the traffic bylaw. The requirements were identified in the parking section of the public hearing report. So with the new signage that's proposed, the intention there is to make it really clear where parking is permitted and where parking is not permitted. And in addition, the parking signage that is proposed configure be is additional signage that I think addresses, that has been brought forward to address some sort of inadequate signage, and also to address some of the issues around kind of that neighborhood green space and pocket park, and parking, no parking near corners, hydrants, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, though, it is the responsibility of drivers under the Motor Vehicle Act in terms of safe driving within the community. And because of that responsibility for individual drivers, that's something that the applicants, becomes very hard for the applicants to be able to enforce. But through the covenant requirement and the fact that that we're proposing to have a traffic management and parking plan that's tied in with the use and the condition of use, the intention is to really to kind of lock that down in terms of that common understanding of and protocol around travel through the neighborhood and parking. Secondly, to the question that Mac McDowell brought up just around the map, figure B with the traffic flow. That was created in consultation with the applicant. And so that was based on concerns that were raised by the neighborhood around the U-turns, also discussed at the first reading consideration by council. By identifying a sort of a preferred means of traveling through the Ravenswood neighborhood, that is one way to help reduce any temptation for U-turns at that intersection of Blue Jay Way and Falcon Crescent. And for clarity, that access and circulation plan is part of the traffic management plan for folks that are using and patrons of the childcare facility. Staff are not suggesting that the entire neighborhood needs to move through the neighborhood in that direction, and we are not proposing to change the flow globally, as well, for the Ravenswood neighborhood. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear, that this is for the patrons of the neighborhood. And in addition, there's of course, the no U-turn signage that is proposed to be installed on the south side of Falcon Crescent. Also, in terms of other locations that may be available for childcare opportunity and use, I want to make sure that in response to Mr. McGowan's commentary, in my opening statement, the applicants were very clear that and have done some exploration of available commercial spaces. What they found was that there are no suitable spaces that met their needs, and they do have a really high desire to look for and to continue to offer service within the Ravenswood neighborhood. There are, as Mr. McGowan pointed out, additional spaces that will be coming online that have been secured through rezonings, and the Centennial rezoning is in close proximity. So that will bring new childcare space to the district, but that will take some time for that project to basically come forward in the leasable space. So that's not something that will come forward in the immediate near future. To close on that, family settings for childcare spaces, I understand from the early childhood educators in our community, because they're home-like, they are really considered important for early childhood development. So childcare facilities in residential home settings are desired by early childhood educators. So,
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. I'll go to council now and see if council has any questions for staff, any issues of clarity you would like to address. Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thank you. A couple. There was the mention of limiting or prioritizing access or spots to people that live within 500 meters. Is there a reason why that wouldn't be in the covenant, or how do we intend to manage that piece, or do we intend to manage it?
Thank you. Through the chair, I was just double checking the draft covenant that was included in the public hearing package. And Councillor Pettingale is correct. The priority placement component is not named in the covenant, but it is included in the description of the traffic and parking, the transportation management and parking program. And so that is definitely a provision that can be added within that plan that's attached to Schedule B. So we would be able to note that if that's something the council would like to see.
Okay, and you may have partly answered my next question. Is just the covenant, does it require that the plan have specific outcomes, or is it just that there be a plan, and then as the I can't remember the term used, primary beneficiary, we have some authority to ensure the plan's meeting our needs. But can you explain how that works a little bit?
I will do my best, through the chair, so thank you for that. The covenant, the Section 219 covenant that has been proposed, it basically does highlight those requirements. The operational kind of detail ends up being included as the final traffic management and parking plan in Schedule B. With these, the priority around these covenants, because they're in favor of the municipality, they cannot be adjusted or amended without mutual consent and in favor of the municipality. We are looking to ensure that the conditions that are agreed to and negotiated basically through the rezoning and confirmed with the rezoning, that those are properly set and maintained within a traffic management plan. And so it basically covenants and obliges the grantor, meaning the lot owner, to ensure that any child care facility that's operating on lot 4 abides by those commitments and obligations. I hope that helps to answer the question. If not, just let me know.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. Two other ones, and I think it came up in our report, but there was a couple of questions this evening about why the need to go to 24, and why wouldn't we just stay at 16 spots here?
Thank you through the chair and for participating in the hearing. We included some lengthy kind of history and rationale in the June 30th staff report. Basically, because, so in 2014, when the district increased the number of child care spaces that could operate in a residential setting under a child care facility residential home occupation use. One thing that wasn't made as clear at that time was that when you bump from 8 children in a residential setting to 16, in 2014, the province simultaneously clarified that that shifts the occupancy under the BC Building Code to A2 occupancy, and that triggers some quite substantial changes in building and fire code requirements. For Rosa and Glauco Barcati, the applicants, they explored this for some time, and to maintain the dual occupancy use of residential above and the child care below, it required some very, very significant investment in fire separation between the upper story and the lower story. They have already invested significantly in the interior and the exterior spaces to create their childcare program and service. And so they wanted to look at some other opportunities to basically stay in the current location, continue to offer care at the current location, but to explore expansion to 16 and bump, because from 16 to 24, there's also additional space requirements, but for the dwelling, because of the size of the dwelling and the exterior yard, there is ample opportunity for additional space, kind of beyond the 24, but in fact, they wanted to limit it to 24.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I have, there's been some reference to potential childcare in the Centennial Way rezoning. Is there any thought that that could be an alternative, or if the Centennial Way one went ahead, there wouldn't be the need for the one on Ravens Cliff?
Thank you for that question. Through the chair, the number of additional spaces that we are projected to require on an annual basis over the next 10 years, based on our child care action plan and the work that was done there, is a need for at least 72 spaces per year, every year for the next 10 years. And that's to accommodate both the current deficit in the number of spaces that we're dealing with currently, and then also to address additional planned growth, projected growth for our child population over time. And so it's not so much a question of, is the Centennial Project going to sort of fill the need, and is there a need for both? Through the child care plan, it's identified that, we're really looking for additional spaces, both in commercial child care settings, but also in residential neighborhoods and residential home settings. Right now, currently about 23% of the licensed spaces that we have in Squamish are in residential home settings, and 77% are in non-residential facilities. And it kind of, it changes depending on the age group for the child care, but we very much need, or it's clear that there is a need for substantial increase in spaces every year. And as one speaker said, it really kind of a drop in the bucket in terms of the need that we're experiencing right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pettengill. Yes, Councillor French. And then Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. I would like to dig a little bit deeper into our ability, the district's ability, to make sure that the traffic plan is followed, and tools that a district might have to ensure that the traffic management plan is being adhered to. So what I heard was, through our business licensing, we have some opportunity to ensure that that plan is followed. So hypothetically, if the district was to receive numerous complaints of the traffic management plan, is it feasible, is it possible that the district could withdraw or suspend the business license and work with the operator to end up with some way to ensure that there is a greater level of adherence to the traffic management plan?
Thank you for that question. Through the chair to council and community, the tools are the covenant and also our business licensing bylaw, as well as our traffic bylaw. Depending on the nature of the issue or kind of the infraction that could be raised at the time. In terms of suspending a license, typically, and I will look to senior staff to add additional or clarifying commentary. I'm not sure if we have Natasha on the line in terms of bylaw services, but typically when complaints are received, we look firstly to work with parties to try and resolve the issues. And so business licenses are issued annually. With complaints, we definitely do look to resolve those, and theoretically, suspension of a business license could be something that we look at in future, should that arise.
Councillor French, do you have a follow-up?
That's good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to confirm the date that the Ravenswood development was zoned. I believe that was 2008. I just want to confirm if that's correct.
That is correct.
Thank you. And then relative to some of the other examples that you provided, Ms. McJanet, of where we do have residential care facility or residential child care facilities in neighborhoods, do we have any sense of the numbers of children that are present in either of those three that you provided examples for, so Platypus, Fresh Air, or Montessori?
Yes, through the chair, absolutely. So the Platypus, the Fresh Air Daycare has, there's actually two different license types, my understanding, at Fresh Air Daycare. And so they have a group care facility or a group care program for 30 months of school age with 25 children. And in addition, this was as of last year's licensing, so I don't have the September numbers from Vancouver Coastal Health just to reconfirm this. We received data from Vancouver Coastal Health with the full summary each September. And so, as I said, Fresh Air Daycare, 25 group care kids, and then also they have an infant program of 12 children at that facility as well. And then for Platypus, they also have a infant toddler program of 12 kids, and then 25 kids in the 30 months to school age. And then for, I think there was one other child care that you were asking me about, and that is, I'm just going to pause for a moment because I have a long list here, so I will be looking for most carefully.
That's the Waldorf school in Delta.
What was the Montessori's?
I believe that, Sarah, were you referring to the Waldorf school or the Montessori school?
Yeah, there's the Squamish Waldorf Child Care, and so on Westaway, and so they have 18 children in the group care school age program. That's at 3H 265 Westaway Avenue. And then there's Valley, so they have an outer school care program as well with 20 children. So I think the Waldorf is the 18 kids.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I just have one other particular question that jumped out at me as I was reading the staff report. It's about the fence height. And we are proposing to amend the allowable height of the fence. I believe we're proposing to increase it. However, is there an expectation that that fence height would be built to that height? And if so, do we have anything in either the covenant or within the proposed new zone that would require that full height to be built?
Thank you for the question. That's true to all of council and community. Within the proposed bylaw, that is correct. So that provision in the bylaw allows for an increased fence height on the interior side yard lot line to 8 feet. Currently, the bylaw restricts fence height on internal side yard lot line of 6 feet. We wanted to sort of create an ability for the applicant to not have to require a variance should they want to go slightly higher, if that was supportive of increased screening on either side of the child care facility. My understanding from the applicant is that in discussion with their immediate neighbors, at this time, there is not an interest in increasing the fence height between the properties. So that is not something that's being pursued or required by the district. However, through the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lot 4 only, there is the provision and the allowance for a small bump in the fence height, should that be of interest in future.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Okay, we've been sitting for an hour and a half, and so I would like to take a few minutes just to allow people to take a break from the screen, and then we'll come back to any additional speakers. So council, and the community, we're going to recess until 7:45. So that gives everyone about 8 minutes to take care of themselves. Thanks everyone for allowing us that break. I'm just going to check quickly with council to see if there's any other questions before we go back to our speakers list. Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I'm curious, we've heard some people speak in support of this project, that just the general need of the childcare needs in town, and then specifically to the quality of the operator. And as we're asked to entertain these changes that do come with a new set of criteria to work within, I'm assuming that there's a set of criteria in place already for the facility at its current size. And I was wondering if you could speak to the current maybe compliance or any complaints in the neighborhood, or just sort of a general sense of that. And I assume if we're at this point, they've proven that they can do what they're asked to do. But can you speak to that?
Thank you for that question. In terms of compliance with requirements, there's 2 aspects to the child care facility as it's currently operating and into the future with any future expansion. Vancouver Coastal Health and the child care licensing officer manages and deals with complaints and also making sure that the provincial child care licensing requirements and the regulations are being met. And so I can't speak to compliance from that Vancouver Coastal Health child care licensing perspective, but I can advise that all complaints that are basically submitted for any child care facility and their inspection reports are publicly available through Vancouver Coastal Health on their website. And at one time, early on in the review, I did have a look at some of the inspection reports. And so if there were any issues, they would appear there from that perspective. And then from the District of Squamish, in terms of our current requirements through business licensing and through the home occupation regulations in our zoning bylaw, obviously we manage that. To my knowledge, we haven't received any formal complaints with Project Play at any time. And the home occupation regulations for childcare residential in our business license bylaw do require that the childcare operator provide a parking plan and notify neighbors within the neighborhood. But because for this rezoning, as proposed, it's proposed to be a childcare facility and not a residential childcare facility, those provisions in our business license bylaw would not technically apply, and that's how we're and why we're kind of bolstering and sort of locking down a bunch of the requirements through a
Thank you. That answers my questions. No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll ask our moderator to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Our next speaker is Jared Sisons. Please go ahead, state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Hello, Council again. Mr. Chair, this is at 39279 Mockingbird Crescent. I'm right on the park area, kind of looking directly at the daycare center. I'm just wondering, this is a question actually for the applicant. Just wondering, in terms of the green space or the park that's there, there's no barrier from the park right onto the roadside, and that's exactly where the U-turn would be. We do it's very common to see like dolls or play toys or things like that going into the middle of the street and seeing children, running into the middle of the street to grab, those types of things. Is there any provision that would allow for a safety barrier on the parkland for the park or the green space is called? And would that be the applicant's responsibility to take care of that? I know the applicant is saying that they'd spend $2,000 for signage and things like that, but the barrier, I think, would be more important in that respect. That's one question. The other one that I was looking at was when you talk about the comparable to other daycare centers within Squamish and you bring them up, it's not apples to apples because every neighborhood is different. You compare one daycare center and the amount of people that they have in it or things like that. Have traffic studies been done on those daycare centers in comparison to ours? That would be another question that I would have. And I'm wondering if council's actually done a walkthrough in terms of our neighborhood to see the impact of having the daycare there, what it would be the impact to the overall neighborhood in terms of all aspects, in terms of traffic and signage and those types of things. I think it's very important for council to actually walk through the neighborhood and to have a eyesight of exactly what would happen in terms of if the daycare was actually put there for 24 children. So that would be the last question I would have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
The last caller we have on our list right now is Victoria at Brennan Park. Victoria, if you could please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead.
I live at 39325 Falcon Crescent. I am direct neighbors to Rosa and Columbo. I guess the first thing to address is the parking. I literally live directly beside them. I've had zero issues with any of the parking. Anyone who's ever obstructed my parking, there's been friends that I have told them that they can park there. I just wanted to note I am in favor of this project. I do have a 2.5-year-old son, almost 3, who takes part in the facility. Just to kind of rewind, I actually have to drive to Ballycliffe 1 day a week. Prior, it was 4 days a week because Rosa didn't have space for my child. So I am on both sides of the coin because not only am I having to leave my area to have childcare, I actually also have to go and obstruct the neighborhood of Ballycliffe to have childcare. So it's a bit of apples to apples in that term, in terms of having density in the neighborhood. Just want to go back to addressing things like parking. Again, it hasn't been an issue for me, and I actually think that a lot of the issues that are in our neighborhood is not when the children are coming to and from school with their parents. I actually think that it's outside of the neighborhood, or outside of the school care hours, that I've seen multiple neighbors feed with their, children in their own car, outside of the, like I said, drop-off and pick-up times. That is more of a concern than I have with the parents who drop off their kids and cautiously come around the corner, make sure there's no children, because they know that there are, at 9 o'clock and at 4 o'clock, more children in the area. So I really don't think that that's a huge concern. I think it's more that Ravenswood people that live there should be concerned about how they're driving outside of those drop-off and pickup times. Something that could be addressed if they are concerned is adding speed bumps. If speed is a concern and safety is a concern, then a proposal for speed bumps is something that council can put into place. In terms of the dog being hit, I just wanted to let Jared know that was not during school hours. That was actually done outside of school hours. That incident had nothing to do with the road, like Project Play. That was actually done by a contractor who lived in the area. Because as we know, we've had a lot of people coming through Ravenswood to build the houses, and that is a problem on its own that should be taken up with the developer of Ravenswood and not Project Play and attaching Project Play on something that is irrelevant to the situation. Yes, children and dogs are running around. Again, I think that the parents that do drop off and pick up are very cautious and mindful and respectful of the fact that this is their neighborhood coming into it.